Okay, so this video is going to go over how to create the final chain link assembly that you see on the screen here. This is for my students that were not in class during the day on how to put this together. It is your responsibility to get the parts completed and taken care of. I'm only going to go through the assembly in this video. And so basically we're looking at the final drawing here. A couple things I want to point out before we get into the actual assembly process is that in this case we are looking for a center of mass. Okay, this is new, this is something we have not done before. But when we look at the center of mass, we have to be very cognizant of the location of our origin. So if you look at this drawing here, right at the very top, this is where my origin is. So as we talked about in class, we did our very first part, which was this long pin right here. We made sure that when we drew this on our top plane, we had the origin in the center here that we extruded down. If you've not done that or did not do that, you need to go back to this part, open it back up, and edit that extrusion so it goes the opposite direction. If you don't do it during this or previous to doing this, it will mess this up to come back in and try to fix this. There are some alternatives there, but we are not going to talk about those today. Those are going to be in a future conversation in class. So I'm basically going to start by bringing in this green long pin first, and then I'll bring in my 4 chain links. We'll copy another pin over here and add in our 3 pins here. The big difference on this one versus what we've done before, we are adding in an element here that we have not used in our mate tools, and that will be introducing our angle mates, and that's what you're seeing right here. So let's go ahead and get this started. I'm going to get into my SOLIDWORKS. I'm going to start with a file new. And because my SOLIDWORKS template folder does not have a starting template for our assemblies, I will use the tutorial tab and start by hitting the word assemb and saying OK. Now one of the most critical things here, now of course is looking for the part. I'm actually going to kick out of this for just a second because I need to turn something on first. When we're starting to work with our center of mass, we need to start locating where our origin is. We need to know the origin of this space so they can make sure that all my parts are centered or attached to that origin. Now the previous models, I just had you guys bring in parts, attach them, and print and turn them in. Now that I'm introducing in the center of mass, we need to go ahead and make sure that we also now have our origin turned on. And that's done by going up here to a little I on this flyout menu. And down here in the 4th icon on the left-hand side of this drop-down box, it's called View Origins. If you left-click, it will turn on an origin on our screen. And this is really important to have on for these assemblies coming up. So each class, we're going to go ahead and have that set up and ready to go. Now I'm going to go ahead and browse for my parts. I'm going to open this up. I have mine located in my H drive, CAD, assemblies, and chain link. Okay, so I'm going to bring in my long pin first. Okay, so I'm going to go here and say open. And I'm going to take, now notice the pin right there, the origin's at the top like it's supposed to. I know I set this part up correctly because we did this in class together. So all I have to do now is attach it to the origin. And that just simply is by moving my cursor to the origin. And as soon as I get close, you'll notice it automatically takes the 2 origins and pins them together. That is my starting point. I'm just going to simply left click. And now my starting point is there. Okay, so I've got the first pin in place. So now what I'm going to do is kind of back up here, and I'm going to go back into my Assembly tab, Insert Components, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in my chain link. So I'm going to bring in a chain link and say Open. And I'm actually going to back this up. Oops, let me go back to isometric here. I'm going to drag one here. I'm going to go ahead and bring in a short pin. So I'm going to do another Insert Components. I'm going to bring in my short pin and say Open. And I'm going to drop a short pin out here. Now I'm going to show you a real quick easy trick here. There's a couple ways. Instead of going into insert components all the time, I can simply hold my control key down, and with a left click and hold on my mouse, click on my part and pull and let go, and I can create a copy. Okay? There's another shortcut way of doing this. I can also use this design tree over here to the left, or assembly tree, left click, grab this chain link right here with a left click, or excuse me, hold my control key, left click and hold on chain link, and drag another one out on the screen. Oh, hold on here. It's all right. There we go. grab one more, there's 4. Okay, I can do the same with the pin. I'm going to grab one here, Control key, drag, Control key, drag. Go ahead and get this one, Control key, left click and drag. So I get all my parts on the screen. Makes it really fast and efficient. Now you'll notice we have all these origins on, and I don't care if you keep them on, they won't show up in the drawing, but if they are annoying to you, you don't like to look at them, you can simply go back up to the eye right here and turn those origins back off. Okay, so now it's nice and clean. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, let me look at this drawing. I need to start orienting these pins or these chain links and putting pins together inside them to start getting this all put together. Okay, and then I'm going to start getting all my mates involved. So I'm going to go back into here. With the right click and hold of my mouse, I'm going to rotate this first chain link around. And then I'm going to turn my mate tool on. And I'm going to start by taking the inside of this first chain link's hole right here, this back part, and make it line up concentrically with the long pin. Hit my check mark. I'm going to hit this top surface here and the top surface here and hit my check mark again. So now I've got my first link in place, but here's a problem with this. This thing is free to spin around. Okay, and that is not good because that means if I just even 1 degree off here, my entire X, Y, and Z of my center of mass will be incorrect. So I need to take this chain link here and I need to lock it to the front plane of my pin. Now to do that, you'll notice I don't have a design tree to go find the parts, but what I do have is a flyout menu. Okay, so I just expand this little arrow right here, and my flyout menu will come about here. Okay, now what you can do is if you hover on each one of these little parts, you'll see an orange box show around each part as I hover over it. So here's my long pin, here's my first chain link. Okay, well what I'm going to do is I'm going to expand out my long pin. I'm going to say, okay, I want the front plane of my long pin, close that up, mated to, and I got to see which plane will work. It looks like, in this case, I'm going to be able to do the right plane. Now, if you did not do a midplane extrusion on this, then your other alternative would be, instead of doing the right plane, is take this surface right here and make it parallel. Okay, so now this is locked together. This now is perfectly in alignment where it needs to be. Okay, this is a real critical step in order to making sure that our X, Y, and Z is actually correct. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and minimize my flyout here, and now what I'm going to do is go ahead and start lining up my pins, or my more chain links and lining up pins. So I'm going to take this chain link here, highlight the inside hole there, and this one here for concentric mate. Take that face there, and I'm going to butt it up flush to that face there, and hit my check mark. Okay, back to my isometric view. Now you can see this thing here, oops, escape on that. This thing now is just free to roll around. All right. First thing I want to do is actually I'm going to rotate this around and put my pin in there. So let me get that in first. And then I'm going to take the back end of this pin and make it flush to that face. Okay, so now again, you can see this is just free to roam around. Okay, but if you look at the drawing I have here, this actually has an angle to it. So it's a very specific defined angle that we need to have here. That angle that they want basically this surface and this surface to be is 153 degrees from each other. So I can do that with my assembly mode. Okay, under mate, if I were to click on this top plane here, or this top face and this top face, SOLIDWORKS' automatic thought is to make them coincident. Okay, perfectly level. But that's not what I want. I don't want to make them parallel. I don't need to make them perpendicular. Okay, I don't want to lock them down. What I want to do is I want to change the angle. Okay, so I have an angle mate right here. And if you come in here and put your angle mate, I'm going to do 153 degrees. Okay, now I want to verify this is doing the right thing, so I'm going to go take a peek at my drawing, and it looks like it should be going down. That's a good indication that I am in the right. If this for some reason was going the other direction, then you may have to play with your alignment tools or your flip dimension tool to get it to go the right direction. Okay, if I click on each one of these, okay, you can see it changes all kinds of things. So I go flip dimension and here. So you may have to play with those three boxes to get the right orientation. At this point, I've got this orientation done, so I'm going to hit my check mark. I'm going to take and rotate this part, and now I'm going to line up this hole to this hole, and this surface to this surface, and check. I'll go ahead and add in a mate with this pin to this hole, add in a mate between this surface and this surface, and hit my check mark. Okay, now going back to my drawing here, this looks like it's supposed to be pushed back, okay, at approximately, it looks like 123 degrees from this surface here. So if I go back into my part here, okay, and take this face here and this face here, again, SOLIDWORKS wants to make it coincident, all right? If I make it parallel, same thing. I don't want to make it perpendicular. I want to add an angle. In this case, I want the angle to be 123 degrees. Now again, if it's going the wrong way, like towards me, I need to work with my flip dimension or my alignment tools. Now in this case, this looks correct. As I said, it needs to go away from me, so I'm going to stick with this one and hit my check mark. Spacebar isometric. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this one around just a little bit. That looks good right there. And then hitting this inside circle to this inside circle. Get a concentric mate. Then take this face to this face to get that lined up. Okay, now going back to my drawing here, it looks like this one is going to be slightly up. All right, and it looks like from this surface to this surface is 140 degrees. So going back to here, I'm going to hit this top face of this chain link to this top face. Again, SOLIDWORKS wants to make it coincident. I'll go down to my angle and type in 140 degrees. That looks good, but again, if something's wrong, you may have to play with the flip dimension tool or the alignments. I'll hit my check mark. I will right click and rotate. I'm going to add this pin into this hole. And then I'm going to take that face and make it flush with this face. Isometric. So all that's left to do here is to come in, highlight this and that hole, check mark, that face to this face, check mark. And there is my final view. Okay, so at this point your assembly is done. I can stop my mate tool, and now what I want to do is go to my evaluate tool and check my mass properties. Now this is a pretty heavy part because these are some pretty heavy pieces, so my mass properties are really up there. It's about 138 pounds. And then here is my center of mass. So on the drawing, we're going to put these numbers in for our X, Y, and Z into our drawing. So what that means is when I get the drawing created, we're going to put the X, the Y, and the Z, including the negatives, plus our mass on here when we set this drawing up. So in that case, I'm going to close this off, and we'll start off with our file new, and put this on our SOLIDWORKS templates with a GHSA metric, and say OK. So now I'm going to go in and do a browse. I have not saved. You have to save your assembly in order for it to show up in your open documents. Since I haven't saved that last one, I'm just going to open up the existing one I have. Go ahead and say an open. Okay, and all we're going to do is bring in an isometric view, do a preview. I'm going to do with color on. I don't care if you do black lines or no black lines. And the scale. This is big because on the actual drawing it tells us our scale is at 1 to 4. Right now we're defaulted at 1 to 10. So I'm just going to change that, and either you can do it this way or you can simply backspace, put the number 4 there, and hit enter. And now if you move this, there is your 1 to 4 scale. I'm going to put this towards the top of my paper and left click. Now at this point here, you're going to notice this metric box and stuff. We're going to kind of clean that up. I'm going to actually crossing window, delete that, and bring my metric down here. And with that highlighted, over to my left, I want to change this border to box. Okay, so we're going to clean that up. And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start going in and adding in my bill of materials. So under my annotation toolbar to the right hand side here, I'm going to drop this arrowhead down and do a bill of materials. Now, we've already previously set this up in other class times, so all I need to really have is parts only checked. Make sure I've picked inside of here, and then I just hit my check mark. And now I'm just going to drop this down and below. Now again, mine is already filled in because I've done this multiple times, so all my materials are already on here, and the number and quantity are already there too. So I don't really have anything to change here. I will adjust a little bit on the size of my boxes by simply getting in here and grabbing and dragging these a little tighter, just to make this a little bit smaller so it's not taking up too much space on my paper. So I'm just going to kind of compress that down, grab this little arrow here at the corner, click and drag. And then the last thing I want to do is, you'll notice in our actual part here, we have a title, Chain Link Final Assembly. Okay, to get that to work, I'm actually going to blow up so you can see this really clearly. In this corner here, you'll see a little double arrow. If you left click on that double arrow, it will create a spot for your title. So I'm going to go ahead and double click, highlight that, put my caps lock on, and do Bill of Materials for Final Chain Link Assembly. And there is the title at the top of the paper. Okay, so that is all done. You'll notice this is a little bit smaller. You can actually come in here and you can change your font sizes. You can come in here and do all that stuff by hitting this letter A right here. You can change all your font sizes to like font size 12, so everything is all the same. Okay, we could also do font size 10, make it a little bit smaller. That's usually what I normally go with is font size 10. You can also go in here and on this make it bold. Okay, so you can go back and manipulate this at any time. All right, but now at this point I have my bill of materials. Okay, now I also need to add in balloons. All right, so in this case I'm going to turn on my balloons. Now I know in the drawing it shows tight fit. I prefer mine to be at 2 characters. I just think it looks cleaner. And so I'm going to put mine at 2 characters and then begin to click on each of the parts. So that's part number 1. This is part number 1. Now the trick here is I'm going to click on this, and instead of clicking out here in space right now, I'm just going to leave my cursor alone. Just basically I'm not going to click anything, but I'm going to hold my control key down. And now I'm going to take and be able to create some extra arrows in here. So I'm going to click an arrow here, an arrow here, and an arrow here. As soon as you're done with that, let go of your control key, and now I can lock this in place. I'm going to do the same thing for these right here, these little pins, short pins, control key, drag, and drag here, let go, adjust it where you want it, and left click. Okay, I'm going to hit escape to turn off those right there. Now for this drawing, you do not need to add in our angles. Okay, that is only there for your benefit. You do not have to add in the origin. But I do want to add in this stuff right here. So I'm going to actually go ahead and do the little trick of Control C for copy and then Control V for paste. So I'm going to do a Control copy here. And then I'm going to go over back into my drawing. I am actually going to do slightly a little bit higher up. Bill of materials I'll probably bring a little bit lower. I just want to make sure I'm providing enough space for that right there. And what I'm going to do is go in here to my note tool, put my note underneath, and do a Control V. I'm actually going to go with these. I'm going to left justify everything like it is in the drawing. And then you're going to go back and take whatever hit escape there and put this right here. Actually, I want to make sure I get my line underlined. It looks like I got an extra piece there. Delete. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to change this information based upon what is on your materials or your mass property sheet. Okay, so I expect to see the MM stay on there. You're going to put your 3 numbers in there plus your mass. And then we're going to finish off by changing up our title blocks. Okay, so in this case, our title blocks all this, chain link assembly, your name, but we're also going to make this page 1 of 3. Okay, your other 2 pages are 2 of 3 and 3 of 3. So I want to make sure I come in here and I'm going to wait till I see this turn orange. And when I see it turn orange, I'm going to double click and change that to page 3. Call this my chain link assembly. Put my name in first initial, last name, the date, the correct period, and the correct scale. Okay, you're going to finish that up. When you're done with this, I want you to print all 3 sheets of paper, 1, 2, and 3 in order, staple it in the left-hand corner, and put this packet into the collection box. With that said, use this video to your advantage. Hopefully that makes it nice and easy. Good luck with this. Do not hesitate to ask if you need help. Take care.